Hey everybody, welcome back to our podcast. This is Murder with My Husband. I'm Payton Moreland.
And I'm Garrett Moreland.
And he's the husband.
And I'm the husband.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you enjoy. And if you are listening, thank you for being here. If you can leave us a review, please do. If not, we're just happy to have you listening. Garrett's a little cold today, so if you're watching on YouTube, that's why he has a blanket.
It's really comfortable.
But Garrett, go ahead and get into your 10 seconds.
All right. So for my 10 seconds this week, I wanted to talk about merch real quick. Those that are Patreons will get early access to be able to buy the merch. We're super excited. We're not sure how it's going to go.
Yeah, this is our first time, but it is an exclusive drop. So there's only a limited number of everything. So that's why our patrons get first access. And then after that, everyone else, go fast, get your merch because an exclusive drop.
We promised it's good quality. We worked really, really hard on this.
That's why it's taken so long.
And we're going to drop more designs and new designs in the coming weeks and the coming months. So we're super excited.
Yeah, we are really excited about this. Our merch was important to us. We wanted to make it not just like our logo on your sweatshirt. We wanted to make it something that you would actually want to wear, kind of like a line. So we're really excited about this.
Yeah, we are.
So this case was suggested by Hannah through our Google form. So thank you, Hannah, for suggesting this. Our case sources are Grave Mysteries Season 1, Episode 6, Meth, Seth, Death, and the Stupid Summerfield 6. It's a 3-part series on YouTube by John Scoggins. ClickOrlando.com. Killer Women with Piers Morgan, Season 2, Episode 5, and then Ocala.com. This week's case begins in 2011 in a quiet little town called Summerfield. Summerfield is located in Central Florida, and it's pretty small. They have some pastures, some fields, a little bit of ma and pa stores, but you really do have to drive to another city to do much. Summerfield does have its own skate park, though, and a drive-in movie theater, but if you are in high school, you kind of have to get creative. And I remember one time actually telling Garrett that on summer nights in my hometown, a lot of high school kids would just go hang out in parking lots. Like we'd all just drive to a parking lot and hang out. And he was like, why? And I'm like, because there's nowhere else to go. Like that's just what we did. And I think it's a little bit of a similar situation here. It's around springtime at the time of this case. And 15-year-old Seth Jackson is a sophomore at the local high school. Seth was pretty tall for his age, and he didn't struggle making friends. His best friend was William Samalot, and together they hung out a lot. Seth liked MMA and BMX racing, and kids at school say you could always count on Seth for anything. He was super chill. He was popular with the ladies. And although everything seems to be going well for Seth in his world, we all know that the real world is an ugly place where evil things happen. On April 18th, 2011, a Monday in the small town of Summerfield, all the high school kids are at school. Well, maybe not all of them, actually. William and Seth have plans to hang out after school, but all of William's texts to Seth are going unanswered. By lunchtime, William tries to call Seth, who doesn't appear to be at school. They had hung out just the night before, but now he's nowhere to be found. Getting worried, William decides to call Seth's mom, Sonia, and ask where Seth is. Sonia is confused by the call. She thought that Seth had spent the night at William's house the night before, and they went to school together. So she hadn't seen or heard from Seth either, and now she's nervous. So Sonia decides to call the police, and Deputy Paul Bloom was on shift at the Marion County Sheriff's Office when the 911 call came in. Another deputy, Deputy Grantham, was sent to the Jacksons' home to take the report in person and get to know the situation a little bit more. Like, where was Seth? When was the last time he was seen? Who was he with? All of that. Sonia and her husband, Scott, were at the house when the deputy arrived. They tell him that they hadn't seen Seth since yesterday, and apparently he's not at school today, and he didn't come home last night.
Okay.
The Marion County Police aren't sending Amber Alerts out right away yet, though, because Seth is 15. They say 9 times out of 10, a reported teenager comes back as a runaway anyways. Sonia tells the deputy that she understands that, but she is a little worried because she had texted Seth around 9 p.m. the night before, and the text had been unusual between them. She had asked him if he needed a ride home from William's house, and he got really angry with her out of the blue. He started swearing, calling her the B word, and that he's not coming home, that he's just going to spend the night at William's. Sonia knew this was out of character for Seth. He had never talked to her like that before, but he was like refusing to come home.
It's weird.
So she chalked it up to normal teenage hormones. Maybe something else was going on, and she decided she would just let him sleep at Williams and talk to him when he got home the next day. But as we know, it's now the next day and Seth is missing. The deputy was immediately suspicious of the texts, but it almost furthered his narrative that Seth is a runaway. I mean, he had just gotten into a fight with his mom. Why would he want to come home?
I don't want to come home. I'm going to my friend's house. Blah, blah, blah.
So despite this, the sheriff's department knows that they need to solidify Seth's whereabouts the night before and see what was going on in his personal life to maybe find where he's hiding out now. They ask Sonia for access to Seth's phone records, and she agrees to it, as well as handing over a list of Seth's friends for police to go talk to. Sonia also informs police that Seth and his girlfriend had just broke up a few weeks earlier, and so she put her name down on the list too. Seth's ex-girlfriend was named Amber Wright. Amber and Seth had been dating for a couple months, and Seth was also friends with her brother Kyle too. And so Kyle and Amber might be a good place to start looking for Seth. After the interview, police search Seth's bedroom and assure Sonia and her husband that the runaway teens always leave behind a trail and they would find Seth soon enough. It was time to start unfolding what was going on in Seth's life before he went missing. One of the first things police discover about Seth is that he had an active appearance online. He was on social media a lot, and this helped them discover more about him. Seth and Amber had begun dating back in December, and according to social media, they became pretty serious fast. They talked about being together forever. They seemed happy. They had a lot of pictures together.
Kind of like your typical in-love high school relationship.
Deputy Grantham, who talked to Seth's parents, immediately heads over to Amber and Kyle's home to talk to them. It can't be a coincidence that her and Seth had just broke up and now he's gone. Deputy Grantham tells Amber Wright that Seth Jackson is missing, and Amber tells him she actually saw Seth the night before in the neighborhood. They had actually hung outside for a bit.
Like as in last night?
Yes, as in the night before. Okay. Another girl named Charlie Ely was actually at Amber's house as well while the police were talking to her, and she backs up her story. Charlie was already graduated from high school. She was actually married to a man who was in prison at the time, so she's like 18 and married to a man, but her and Amber were best friends, and she too had been there the night before when they had hung out with Seth and talked to him outside.
Weird. So it sounds like he just didn't want to come home.
Exactly. So they claim that Seth was arguing with his mother via text, which aligns with his mother's story. And so when he left, they just assumed that Seth was going home to fix whatever was going on with his mom. With two people who, as of now, were the last people to see Seth, Deputy Grantham calls for backup, and Lieutenant Todd Spisher responds to the call. They would like to kind of separate the girls and nail down their stories individually, and so that's what they do. Lieutenant Spisher takes Charlie out to the intersection that her and Amber claim is where they hung out with Seth the night before. He asks her just once again to tell him what she remembers from the night before. Charlie said the same thing. They ran into him. They started talking. He was fighting with his mom via text. But then Charlie adds something to her story that she hadn't mentioned back at the house. She says that when Seth was getting ready to leave, they all heard a loud bang. And she doesn't know if it was a firecracker or a gun, but at the sound of the bang, Seth just took off sprinting down the road. And that's the last time they saw him.
So, wait, how far away were they from him?
They were standing right next to him. They were hanging out. And then they heard a bang and he just took off.
Seth was with them.
Yes.
They heard a bang and then Seth went running.
Yes. This is what Charlie, who is the already graduated girl who's best friends with Amber, Seth's ex-girlfriend, is saying.
Oh, it's a whole triangle. We got a whole triangle already.
So Charlie says, I don't know. Seth just took off fast running. He might have even gotten shot. And maybe he just started running for his life. And the cop's like,
that's kind of weird.
What? Charlie says she's not sure. She doesn't know where the bang came from, but she does remember seeing a person standing about 35 yards away that might have been the source of the bang. And then she tells the lieutenant she knows who this person is too. It's a friend named Mike Bargo. And the thing about Mike Bargo, he's Amber's new boyfriend. He's the reason that Seth and her broke up in the first place. So we're now adding another character into the mix, which is this Mark Bargo guy who is the reason that Amber and Seth broke up, because now it's Amber's new boyfriend.
I feel like stories and everything are already getting suspicious.
Already. Charlie explains to Lieutenant Spisher that Mike, like her, is actually graduated too. He's 18, and because Charlie lives on her own, Mike stays at her house a lot. She rents the house with another boy, a 20-year-old Justin Soto. And Charlie and Mike had actually slept together before, but now he's dating Amber, her best friend, so it's no big deal. And that's how Mike and Amber had met. It wasn't long before Amber was attracted to Mike, the older, more mature man than her high school boyfriend, Seth. She didn't want to date a high school boy anymore. She was ready to move on. And because of this, Mike and Seth hate each other, obviously. Lieutenant Spisher slows Charlie down. He's like, okay, are you 100% sure the other person there was Mike Bargo? She says she doesn't know. I don't know really, but it looked like him. And he goes, hey, none of this is making sense. Like, you're not making sense.
Well, she's just going in circles. And
now there's this whole other part to the story than what they told him back at the house. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And is it not weird that the ex-boyfriend and now the ex-girlfriend like hung out? You know what I'm saying? Because they were exes and now they're hanging out again.
Like how Seth came.
Correct.
Yeah, it's weird. Like if she's moved on with Mike and Seth and Mike supposedly hate each other.
Yep.
Why did Seth come back over? But I'm chalking that back up to like in high school, I feel like people who broke up would always like get back together and then break up and then get back together and break up. So that's what I'm thinking. But back at Amber's house, Deputy Grantham, who is interviewing Amber, is hearing a pretty different version of what happened the night before than what Charlie is telling Lieutenant.
Okay.
Amber doesn't mention any other person hanging outside with them or on the street that night. She says it was just her, Charlie, and Seth. And that after Seth went home, not from running off because of a bang, might I add, her and Charlie just came back to the house and hung out alone. Deputy Grantham asks Amber about the breakup, and she tells him it was mutual. It was mutual between me and Seth. It was no big deal. It wasn't dramatic or anything. Lieutenant Spisher returns to the house with Charlie, and once him and Deputy Grantham talk, they know something's not adding up. Both of the girls' stories are different. They decide to pull Amber aside and confront her about Charlie's story and how it's pretty different from hers. They start by asking her if she saw Mike Bargo the night before. And she's like, no, I didn't. So they tell her that Charlie says Mike was actually outside with them and that he might have shot Seth. Amber denies it. She says that didn't happen. Seth just went home. I don't know why Charlie's saying that. Spisher and Grantham ask her why she didn't tell them about her new boyfriend, Mike. And she tells them, listen, I didn't think it was important. It's not that big a deal. The police are confused because Amber is calm and relaxed. She doesn't seem nervous and she's showing no signs of dishonesty.
Yeah.
So despite the contradicting stories, both the girls agree that they saw Seth the night before and they don't know where he or Mike Bargo are now. None of this makes sense. But back at home, William, his best friend, is still worried, and so he decides to try and find Seth on his own. He hops on his bike and rides over to Amber's house to ask her if she knows where he is, but once there, he obviously runs into Lieutenant Spisher. William asks them if they are there asking about Seth, his missing best friend. They tell him, yes, we are. We just talked to Amber and Charlie about it. They ask William when the last time he saw Seth was. And William says, well, I was just hanging out with Seth last night.
Oh my gosh. So everyone in the town apparently hung out with
Yes.
Seth last night.
So they were hanging out with some of their other school friends, specifically another friend named Brittany Jones. And they were all just playing video games when Seth got a phone call from Amber, his ex-girlfriend. Brittany says it was a text. William says it was a phone call. So like sources differed, so I'm not sure.
It's kind of funny how everyone's story is different. Like something's going on.
Wrong. Yeah. So despite William's pleas, don't answer the phone, Seth. It's your ex-girlfriend. She's nothing but trouble. Please don't talk to her. Seth takes the call. William said that Amber told Seth that she loved him and she wanted to get back together on that phone call that night. Both William and Brittany try to tell Seth to stop. Listen, she's lying. She has a new boyfriend. This is not good. But you know how your best friend would always like have your back and best interests. And when it came to the ex, most of us, they'd be like, don't get back together with them. They're trouble. And you would just be like, yeah. And then you'd always do it. Yeah. So that's kind of what's happening here. Seth loves Amber. He cares about her. And despite their breakup and this new Mike Bargo, older kid, he still wanted to be with her. So after supposedly Amber called him that night, Seth told William he was going to go home. He was like, I'm just not even going to engage. I'm just going to go home. William knows better. And he goes, no, dude, really don't go see her. Like, just go home. And he's like, I'm not going to. Seth says, I'm not going to. And he leaves. That was the last William had seen his best friend Seth. And then remember, Seth doesn't actually ever go home. Lieutenant Spisher and Deputy Grantham then ask William about Mike Bargo, Amber's supposed new boyfriend. William tells them that Mike had a really bad reputation. He would hang out with high school kids because he wanted a crew of people around him, but no one his own age would hang out with him. William says that Mike tried to act hard, but really he had to prey on kids younger than him for people to think he was cool, but that it worked. And Mike Bargo was the ringleader of a bunch of high school kids who hung out at Charlie's house.
Okay.
So this is already a red flag.
Yeah,
like, you have a graduated
100%.
older kid who's still there hanging out with all these high school kids. And these kids were all like their own little rebellious posse. It was all the high school kids who were doing things that high school kids probably shouldn't be, because Mike Bargo, the older guy, could get this stuff for them, right? So William tells police that Amber and her brother Kyle had been spending most of their time at Charlie's house with Mike Bargo doing whatever it is they wanted to do. They did drugs, they broke laws, you know. And despite now 3 different stories that don't line up about Seth the night before, police tell William that most likely Seth just ran away. He would be back soon. When William hears this, he freaks out. He tells the police that Seth didn't run away. This isn't him. Something bad has happened. Spisher and Grantham say goodbye to William and they head back to the police station. But the way that William had reacted with such worry and urgency made them question if Seth really had just run away. Like, something seems a little off.
What was kind of weird is that I'm still thinking back to when Charlie said, "Oh, he could have been shot, but
I don't know.
not sure." I don't know.
And then Amber's like, no, that didn't happen at all.
Like, wouldn't you know if someone got shot? It just seemed that was just kind of weird to me.
So once back at the station, they begin digging in harder to the disappearance. They decide to set up a search perimeter and they look into gaining access to the phone records. But while waiting for that, they put out a bolo for Seth that would go out to the surrounding departments. After that step, police decide to try and find Mike Bargo and Amber's brother, Kyle Hooper. It seems that these are the 2 people who are involved in everyone's story, but they haven't been able to talk to them yet.
I feel like I'm like listening to a high school thriller TV show.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're in Riverdale right now. Yes, exactly. So they pull up Mike Bargo's record because he's an adult, and they discover that he had been reported to have access to a weapon in the past, and that actually he had a restraining order out against him in the past year. So they were like, we need to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Back at Amber's house, William, Seth's best friend, didn't forget why he came there in the first place. So he felt like he needed to search for his friend, and he knew he needed to talk to Amber. So when police left, Seth went up to talk to her. And William and Amber had actually been friends when Seth started dating her. But once Amber dumped Seth for Mike, their friendship ended. And that's right. It hadn't been a mutual breakup like Amber told police. It was messy. William knows that Amber had randomly broke up with Seth, or Seth had broke up with her because of cheating. It kind of depends on who you talk to. Okay. But either way, the breakup hurt Seth bad. William confronts Amber at her home and tells her to tell him what's going on. Amber tells William what she told police, that Seth had come by last night to hang out and then he left. William tells her, listen, I know you're lying. Something else has happened. He's missing. Tell me the truth.
I feel like the only person I trust right now is William.
I agree. He
just sounds right now like the most trustworthy person.
I agree. Amber tells William to leave, that there's some things he doesn't need to know. William is stunned. Amber basically just confirmed that she knows more about what's happened to Seth than she's leading.
It's crazy.
So William leaves the house because Amber makes him, and he knows that Seth's disappearance is connected to the breakup with Amber and her new boyfriend, Mike Bargo, but he doesn't know how. Police are now discovering, while digging through Seth's life online, that the breakup had not been amicable. Seth and Amber had actually been fighting about it online in front of everyone. They were calling each other horrible names, expressing their hate for each other. And finally, when Seth finds out that Amber was actually dating Mike, the hostility grows worse. In late March, when Seth finds out that Mike and Amber are at a party together, he decides to show up and confront both of them. Things at the party get heated between the two, and Seth hits Mike.
Oh, dang.
Now, it wasn't like a brawl. I mean, like, Seth punched Mike once, and then Mike went down. And this doesn't sit well.
Like he got knocked out?
Yes, this doesn't sit well with this 18-year-old graduated, needy for attention Mike, who preys on high school people. He just got knocked out by his girlfriend's 15-year-old ex-boyfriend at his own party in front of all of these kids that go to school. So talk about an ego crush, right? So after the party, basically a social media war begins between Seth, Amber, and Mike. They are making threats. They are going back and forth. Amber was bashing Seth. Seth was bashing Amber. Like, this is not pretty. There's name calling.
Jeez.
It's a big deal.
Okay.
And it's not long before Kyle, Amber's brother, jumps in online to defend his sister, posts for Seth to stop calling Amber names on Facebook. It's this huge deal. And it doesn't matter. The posts escalate and Seth reaches his breaking point. So one night, Seth goes to Amber's house and goes ballistic. He's on her front lawn, just yelling at her, basically word vomiting. He's losing it. And Amber doesn't come outside. And so eventually Seth leaves. But this is how crazy
they
this
don't
has
call the
gotten.
cops or anything?
No, but
Okay.
This is how bad this breakup and Mike Bargo and everything has gotten. So at this point, as police are finding all this out, police and William are separately searching for Mike Bargo. He's like the missing link. But William finally finds Kyle, Amber's brother, instead. He asks him, hey, where's Seth? Kyle begins stuttering. He's telling William he hasn't seen him. William asks him where Mike is. Kyle says, oh, I don't know where Mike is either. And William's like, dude, you guys like hang out together every day. And he's like, no, I don't know where he is.
The cops haven't found Kyle yet?
No. Kyle and Mike are both missing.
Okay.
The cops haven't found Kyle yet, but William just ran into Kyle.
Yeah.
So William knows something is wrong with Kyle. He was skittish. He was dancing around his questions, and he actually just like got up and left in the middle of their conversation. So William's like, something is going on. It seems like despite effort, police and William aren't really getting anywhere or any answers until on Tuesday morning, the Marion County Sheriff's Office get a call from a woman named Tracy Wright. And Tracy Wright is Amber and Kyle's mother. So Tracy tells police that an officer needs to come to her home right away because her son Kyle has information about Seth, the missing boy from town.
Okay.
So police are stunned. They send an officer to Tracy Wright's home and they pick up Amber and Kyle. Detectives ask Amber and Kyle to turn over their phones and they separate the two at the police station. In one room is Amber and in another is Kyle and his mom. Kyle tells police that Sunday night, this is the night that Seth went missing, Seth wanted to talk to his sister. And so Amber and Charlie came to Charlie's house with Mike Bargo, and then Seth shows up later. So at Charlie's house, this it's like she's renting this home, is Mike Bargo, the new boyfriend, Amber Wright, Seth's ex-girlfriend, Kyle, Amber's brother, and Justin Soto, which is the other boy that rents a room at the home with Charlie.
Okay.
Justin, Mike, and Charlie are all over 18.
Okay.
And then Kyle is obviously there too. So Kyle tells police that he doesn't like Seth because Seth had been attacking Amber online. And Kyle seems on edge in this interview. You can tell he's nervous. Both him and his mom keep like rubbing their heads in distress. They're like rubbing their temples. Kyle keeps putting his head in his hands and like leaning on his knees. You can just tell that something's wrong. So Kyle says that when Seth showed up to talk to Amber that night, Mike randomly shot him multiple times. Like Seth showed up, Mike grabbed his gun and shot him.
So Charlie was
kind
sort of matching
right,
that story.
but it was inside the house. It wasn't outside.
What the heck? Okay.
He says that he saw Mike kill Seth, but no one else knew that he was going to do it. It was just a random thing. And so they bring Amber in next, and she says that she was just too scared to be honest with the police before when they came to her house. But that night at Charlie's house, Seth had showed up. Charlie answered the door and Seth told her he wanted to talk to Amber. So Charlie let him in. Amber says that Kyle was in the living room at this point and Mike was in his own room at Charlie's house. Amber says that her and Seth are just talking in the living room when randomly out of the blue, Mike comes out of his room and shoots Seth.
Oh my God.
So she says her and Charlie ran into Charlie's room and shut the door. They're freaking out. They're scared. She says that after that, Mike came in and told them, if you say anything, I'm going to kill both of you too. And so
Holy
that's why
crap.
she hadn't said anything.
Okay.
So police are stunned, but they bring Charlie in to confirm the story. They're like, okay, we have Kyle's story, we have Amber's story. Now we need to talk to Charlie. So Charlie comes in and she drops a bomb that Seth didn't just randomly show up to talk that night. He was in fact lured there by Amber because Mike said that he wanted to scare him.
No way.
So remember how William had said that they were all hanging out and then Amber either texted or called him and was like, hey, I need to talk to you. I want to get back together. Come over.
Yep.
So that did happen. And it was because Mike had said, Amber, get Seth over to the house now. I want to scare him.
Okay.
That's what Charlie's saying. So Charlie says she didn't know that Mike was going to kill him, that's the reason he had Amber text him over. But Charlie, Amber, and Kyle have now said that Mike Bargo killed Seth in a fit of rage. Like all three of their stories say that. So after the interviews, all three of the teens are put into a room together at the police station. And like all of us know, these rooms have cameras. They have audio. You can watch, like any interrogation room has this.
And for some reason, people will always forget that.
And for some reason, these three teenagers do not think that that is a thing.
No way.
So
you can see this?
Okay, it's not really released to the public, but any like documentary about this has it. So I was unable to find like the whole thing, but I saw bits and pieces in my sources. And this part is eerie because they are unaware that they are being filmed, and they've all three just admitted that Mike Bargo killed Seth that night and that they were all there. So Amber, Kyle, and Charlie spill everything in this room while being watched by police.
Okay.
They reveal that basically all of them were in on this plot to lure Seth over to the house that night and kill him. It was planned and it was executed.
Oh my gosh.
Kyle says that Seth was not innocent, that they didn't kill an innocent kid because Seth was, threatening Amber online, that he deserved what they did. And they also revealed that another person, the 20-year-old Justin Soto, was there as well. So police didn't know about Justin being there until these three kids talk about it. So literally these two teenagers and then the three adults murdered a 15-year-old boy in cold blood. They lured him to this house and they murdered him, all knowing that they were going to do it.
That is insane.
Insane. Absolutely insane. So, and during this footage, Amber is like, people are going to hate us because we murdered a 15-year-old boy. No one's going to want to be our friend after this.
She's not even killed someone.
Yeah, and she's not even...
They're going to jail.
She can't even fathom it. She says at one point, she's puts her hands in her head and she goes, I'm not going to get out of here till I'm 20. She's 16. That's 4 years. First degree murder, you're going to be in for a lot longer than that.
Crap.
They can't even fathom what they've done. They have no idea.
They think it's a joke.
Yes. I mean, right now, there's 5 of them who lured this 15-year-old boy to a house. I think they just think, oh, well, we did this thing. We're a gang.
Yeah.
We did this thing, and now I'm not going to get out of here for 4 years. It's just so weird. So phone records show that Amber did, in fact, get in touch with Seth that night and tell him that she wanted to get back together, and this was around 7 p.m.
So that's what I was saying earlier. Isn't it kind of weird that Seth just went over?
Well, he loved her.
Yeah.
He was really upset that she had chosen Mike over him.
Yeah.
And it had been this big mess. But remember in high school,
but it was a plan. It was all lured.
It was a plan.
To
She
get
didn't
him over.
actually mean that. Amber literally sent that text knowing that Seth was in love with her and that he would show up.
Yeah.
And she knew that he wasn't coming over to get back together. She knew that, but she still did it. It's evil. So she texted him to meet her at the corner at 140th Street and 58th Court Street. This is by Charlie's house. This is the intersection that Charlie had said originally told police that they had hung out at. So Seth walks there, and at 8:22 p.m., he texts her that he's there. Seth meets Amber out on the street, but is surprised when Charlie is there too. Amber had said they would be alone, and this part is heart-wrenching. Seth had actually texted Amber and said, Amber, if you're setting me up to be jumped right now by your new boyfriend, I will never talk to you again.
Oh, that's horrible.
Because he knew that there was really bad tension between them. And Amber said, no, it's just me. I just miss you. It's just me. So when Seth shows up and Charlie's there, he's like, what the heck, Amber? Like, you said it was just going to be us. Amber tells him, hey, just come back to Charlie's place. It's just the three of us. And I just want to talk to you there. So the three of them walk there. And once Seth is there, him and Amber sit alone in the living room. And unbeknownst to Seth, Mike and Kyle are waiting in the back room. Randomly, Kyle and Justin Soto, who rented a room there, walk out and begin beating Seth over the head. They come up behind him while he's talking to her and they just begin beating him over the head.
Oh my gosh.
And then Mike walks out with a gun and he tells the boys to move and he begins shooting Seth. Seth runs out the front door trying to escape, but is shot again in the yard, and they go out and drag him back inside the house.
No way. This is so evil.
So evil. So once inside the house and still alive, they place Seth into the bathtub. And I'm really not going to go into detail about what happened here and the remainder of the night, but they continue to torture him in very cruel ways. It's a slow death, and I'm not going to go into detail, but you can look it up. But once Seth is finally killed, they burn Seth's body in a bonfire outside as they all sit around it and drink and laugh and hang out while his body is literally burning in the fire.
This is probably one of the most evil things I've ever heard.
And it's just like 5 people.
Holy
like 5
crap.
people have killed. Like, how does that I can't even fathom this.
Yeah.
So when police search the crime scene of the house, Charlie's house, they find human bones in the fire pit. They find the rest of the remains nearby in 3 separate 5-gallon paint buckets that were dumped into a quarry. So the rest of Seth's body. The quarry was down at the bottom of a cliff. And so they had literally the next morning just put his body parts into these buckets, walked over and threw these buckets off the cliff into the quarry like he's trash.
And they're saying all this in that room?
Basically, but not all of these details are released in that room.
These are just all the
details. These just come out later, yeah.
Got it.
So Mike Bargo was actually hiding out 80 miles away at a friend's house, and he is found and arrested. And he asks for a lawyer immediately, so he's not ever interrogated alone, so we don't have that. But according to John Scoggins' YouTube video on this case, police discovered that a 27-year-old man named James Haven allegedly came over the next morning and helped Mike Bargo dump the body into the quarry. So we now have 6 people who are in on this. And so James was charged as an accessory after the fact. Amber Wright, Kyle Hooper, Charlie Ely, and Justin Soto are all tried as adults and convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
So she's not getting out at 20?
No. So all 4 of them are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility. Mike Bargo gets the death penalty.
Wow.
And he becomes the youngest person in Florida on death row.
And he's still on death row? All
of this happens because of those details that I left out, because it was especially heinous.
Got it.
And so that's why they were able to go this extreme. As of June 17th, 2020, Charlie Ely is getting out of prison after serving only 9 years. She appealed and the appeal went through.
Whoa.
She said that she claimed her innocence, like saying, I never actually knew. I didn't know that it was going to be to this extent. I didn't take part in the burning. And so she had a good lawyer. And so she got her conviction.
But she still planned to kill someone.
Exactly. So she maintained her innocence and appealed, and eventually one of those stuck, but the rest of them are still in prison.
Okay.
And at one point, Mike Bargo's death penalty sentence got put into question, but then the Supreme Court was like, no, we're upholding it. The interview Amber did with Piers Morgan on his show Killer Women from Jail, she said that her and Seth were just 2 teenagers having sex and doing drugs, and she doesn't know why he had to die, but she just went along with it. So Amber also says that she didn't kill Seth to be with Mike. She wasn't like, oh, it would just been easier if he was gone. She just thought that she was in love with him. And so but now she knows it wasn't love, but she doesn't really know why she did it. Mike, from the beginning, claimed he and Amber were just friends, even though they both had each other's initials tattooed on their private areas. So when Mike went to trial, he was like, no, me and Amber were never boyfriend, girlfriend. And Amber's like, yeah, we were. And he's like, no, we weren't. Amber says she was sleeping with Mike, which he denies. And she says the only reason she was doing it was to try and hurt Seth. that it was on purpose. And she all she says is, we were in high school and I don't know, it was just about who could hurt the other more until she killed him.
Yeah.
She says that at the time she was a cold, manipulative person who got what she wanted. And I really do think Amber is telling the truth through the whole interview. When Piers reads her back the text that she used to lure Seth to his death, she admits it's monstrous and evil. Like, I don't know what else to say. She doesn't show much emotion, but she also doesn't seem like happy or deceitful. She honestly just seems really cold and turned off to the whole thing. She says that when her verdict of life was read, she felt like she deserved it and she can't change it. And she knows that she won't last very long. Like, she thinks that she'll commit suicide before she dies in prison. And I don't want to really speak anymore for what Amber said during this interview because Seth doesn't get the chance to speak for himself. He doesn't get to speak, so I'm not going to give her that platform either. Seth loved hard and he was killed for it. It's not fair. Group killers are strange because we have to ask if any of them would have done it without the other. Would all of them have killed on their own? But either way, it doesn't matter. They killed and they tortured a boy who was innocent that night. This world is cruel, so remember to love those people in your life today a little bit harder after hearing this story. And we will think of Seth Jackson today.
Man, that is horrible.
It's a really, really bad case.
It's monsters, every single one of them.
Just like, I understand.
Everyone that was involved, just pure monsters.
Like, I understand there was feuding, but for you to like lure him over by saying, I want to get back together and then just attack him.
Yeah.
After he explicitly texted you and said, if this is to jump me, I will never talk to you again.
Yeah.
And they all knew it. They all planned it and they all tried to hide it. It's just so crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, but that is our case this week. Thank you so much for listening. A reminder about our merch, our exclusive drop. We are really super excited about it. Thank you so much for always supporting us. Thank you for loving us. And we will see you guys next week with another episode. I love it.
And I hate it.
Goodbye.